Catching up with Sarah and Ginny, fueled by laughter and insights aplenty. Curiosity, connection, and learning that sticks. Real talk, real lives with practical tips. Welcome to Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny. Come on in.
Welcome to another episode of Catching Up with Sarah. Sarah, for those who are not watching, is going up and down on her chair, and she is actually doing it, as my wonderful dad would say, to wind the job up, because Sarah knows she and I to be in line. But Sarah just likes to mess with me and go up or down. And when we've got guests, she does it even more. Just putting it out there, Sarah.
Well, I like it because I've got a table that will go up and down and I get my dodgy hips. So I actually, it helps me actually, Ginny. And I'm also doing my calf raises because I'm back to doing Beach Fit with Millie, the wonderful Millie, who I'm trying to get her to listen to the podcast more. And calf raises. So when I'm standing up, I can do them. And actually, if I do the calf raise, I go a bit higher and I'll go a bit shorter.
So are you standing? So are you standing now?
Can you not tell?
No.
Yeah?
No,
that's so cool. Yeah, I'm standing up.
You are not. You are.
Oh,
okay.
Stop it, because then I'll try and do it with my camera. Then I'm going to knock everything over.
It's all right.
Right,
It's
so
all
I'm
right.
not going to show you, but I am, yeah. I'm standing. I mean, I almost jumped then.
No, it's fine. I will believe you. I am sitting with a blanket over my knees because I'm so cold, Sarah. But
the weather's gone shocking. It's gone cold.
I never realised that you stood for our podcast. But
I don't always stand for the podcast. Sometimes I'm sitting down. Most of the time I'm sitting down. But for if we've done, because we have recorded a couple this morning. So when we recorded, then I tend to get a bit like, my legs are getting a bit stiff now, so I need to stand up. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
The joys of old age, really, Ginny, which again, I could go on through lots of conversations around that. And I won't.
No,
so
let's
are you?
not. Let's not. Shall we move on to a wow moment? That might be more upbeat, Sarah. What's a wow moment?
Wow moment. Oh gosh, so many wow moments. I feel like we haven't had one of these conversations in a long time. Actually,
I know, too long.
Wow moment has been some of the guests that we've spoken to. In fact, no, there's two wow moments. Some of the guests that we've spoken to and some of the conversations that we have, I'm continuously wowed by how many incredible people we have in this sector, how many incredible people want to talk to us, and also just the stories behind like what they're doing now and how they got there and what inspired them to do it. And it's so powerful. And it's so it's that power of storytelling again, isn't it? And it's the power of when we find out even more about someone and we find out even more about why they do what they do. That was one wow moment. The other wow moment is around all this discussion around inclusion basis. A lot of the work that I've been doing, a lot of the conversations that I've been having recently around, how are we going to set these things up? What's the ethos behind it? What's the kind of how are we working as a trust, as a school? And I went on some really great training recently as well, where I was listening to conversations around inclusion bases, what they're going to look like and how they're going to kind of work. And a wow with that has been some of the conversations being led by professionals about, making sure we understand that why we're doing what we're doing. What's going to be the criteria? What's going to be the principles behind that inclusion base? And how is it encapsulated within the whole school as opposed to a separate part? And how is it kind of like coming back into the school, going out of the school, like that it's built in from the heart and from the root of the school. And I think the wow moment was just how much thinking we need to do behind all of this and we need to do around all of this, and kind of the importance that will come out of that around some of these conversations. I think initially inclusion based and that kind of conversation, it gone one way and people were looking very negatively at some of that. And I think probably for me, that was a little bit how I was feeling about what they would turn into. And then hearing some of the inspirational professionals talking about the kind of thinking and the theory and the support behind it. And actually, it's a wow that we've got all these passionate people wanting to make a difference and how these kind of spaces are going to sit within the current kind of context
Mm.
of schools and the curriculum. So there you go. That was kind of two separate things there, Ginny.
And I think, am I right in thinking it's also about how we can learn from one another so that this works
Yes.
well by, you're saying listening to professionals and actually that kind of, that it's not a drip drip effect, that isn't right, but going, okay, I understand where they're coming from. So people
Yeah.
don't have to do it in isolation, but that there's a kind of umbrella.
And the whole thing about it being an inclusion base is about the fact that it should be an umbrella. And
Yeah.
actually, so the spaces that we've got is to provide a bit more of a unity across
Yes.
all the local authorities, that it's a model that we are all going to use and create within our context, but we're all going to have those same underlying principles
Yes.
around the purpose, the
Yes.
function, the way that this is going to be part of our school. It's not seen as a separate, how does it feed into that leadership management of the school, in terms of how it's for all of that stuff. And
Right.
it is around that, around those conversations. And
Mm,
I really welcome the fact
mm.
that those conversations are being had. And I'm really looking forward to exploring that further with some of the trusts that I'm working with, and just generally, hopefully, maybe on this podcast, we can have a look at some of the guests that are kind of within
Yes.
this field
Yes.
and get
Yeah.
some people on to talk about this.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, I'm going to move on to If Send Were a Song, and I'm going to
Oh,
get me,
oh,
proffer a song. And it's a new song to me, and I love it when it's a new song to me. And it's called
yes.
One Call Away by Charlie, I think his surname is Puth. And actually, Sarah, I was singing as you arrived onto the podcast because I was like, I love this song. But this idea of who is your one call away, when
Yeah,
it gets really, really challenging, whatever your role is within a child's life,
yeah,
be it the teacher, the TA, the head teacher, the expert about the child, which is the parent or the carer. Who is that person? It makes me all emotional, but who is that person who is one call away, who you value what they will say back to you when you are having just a moment, a
mm,
difficulty, when you need to talk something through with somebody? And it's about choosing that person very, very
yeah,
carefully, because what we can end up doing if we're not careful is we can end up having somebody's opinion who is very far away from
yeah.
our reality. So yeah, One Call Away by Charlie Puth. Beautiful, beautiful, just a beautiful song.
And I do love it. Actually, Ginny, you were serenading me with that
Yeah.
as I came into the podcast, and interestingly, it felt like you were in the room. And but that was kind of like, because I had to come through the door and I could hear you singing and I could hear the music playing, and it was like you were in the room singing the song. And I thought, just that feeling of, because I'd love you to be in the room singing the song.
Mhm.
We talked
Yeah.
about us going to meet for a coffee,
Yeah.
and actually in person, and it's that same kind of thing. That one call away is that kind of, who can you bring to raise your spirits?
Yeah.
Who's that going to be that person that will make you feel better about something, or make you feel positive again?
Yeah.
I always say, recording these together, it always helps lift my spirits,
Yeah.
and make me feel better generally, because I think currently for everyone things are difficult.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot happening. I think we're being expected to think about a lot continuously. I think obviously we've just had the consultation for kind of like the send consultation, and actually looking at what's that going to mean, what changes is it all going to bring. Um, Even the discussions around kind of inclusion basis. Some people, this is happening in many places.
Yeah.
It's it's that idea that we don't have to do this on our own. And I think
Yeah.
that's the big thing, is we shouldn't be doing things on our own. We should be looking for who we can connect with. We should be looking for
Yeah.
that opportunity to have those kind of, I think we always talk about radiators, don't we? Radiators and drains. There's people that are gonna, and that you singing, I was coming through the door. That was my little radiator. I was like,
Oh,
oh, she's in my room.
oh, there we go. There we go. So, Sarah, have you got a song? Have you got a book? Either or, both?
I mean, I have to say, I've probably got too many books, so I will go on to a book purely because, again, I've been rediscovering the joy of books, which sounds really random considering I'm surrounded by books.
Mm.
But I think we have to remember the whole thing around books can just become things that are on the shelf. And the
Yes.
same within our classrooms, they're just kind of
Yes.
objects. They're set. And I always talk about, when you go into Waterstones and you walk in and they've changed the display, or they've just highlighted one book, or they've created a little area that's got very similar books. It's that rediscovering some of those books and
Yeah.
rediscovering the joy is what we've got to be continuously doing. And I think for me, I probably got to a point where, I don't know, looking at books that I suggest to people, because I tend to kind of buy a lot of books that I suggest to schools or my training. And I think I'd probably gone, I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe that's because everything is so busy, and we've just talked about things being so
Mhm.
busy. I haven't had time myself. And I think I haven't had time to look at books and to explore kind of books. But recently, because I've been advising schools that they need to make little personalized libraries for young people, some schools that I've worked with have made, just little, even like box files, where kids have started to collect some books that they really like, either from home, from the library, magazines, clips from newspapers. I mean, not necessarily clips anymore, is it? But things they might have printed off that they want to find out more about. So they've got a little personalized library of things. And it made me think, well, what do I need to do around that? If I was now going to create a little pile of a personalized library, what would I do?
Mhm.
And I started exploring World of Books again, just to go, what would I search for? What would I look for? And of course, I love Alice in Wonderland. So I do a lot of talking about Alice in Wonderland and different ways into Alice in Wonderland. But I guess I'd maybe become a bit stale with that. And then I found Letters from Wonderland. So I'm holding the book
Oh!
up now. Now, if anyone, I was a teacher in the days when the Jolly Postman was kind of very, very popular, and there was nothing better than pulling out those little letters from the book, creating your own little books of letters. And, we don't necessarily, I think we've talked on this podcast about the joys of post and receiving things
Mhm.
through the mail. Um, Actually, the joy of there being interclass post, things that messages sent between classes,
Yeah.
and actually having that as a regular thing that happens, a little regular routine that maybe it's a certain class's turn to make sure they write or
Mhm.
create something for
Yes.
every class that's posted. Um, and then maybe they could create a book about, this week's post. It's those little incidental opportunities to be readers and writers. And what I love with this, I think, again, is because it's got me to just think about different parts of the story again. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what people have actually thought about with this. And I mean, this is one particular scene that with Alice in Wonderland, with the Duchess and her sitting in the kitchen holding the wailing baby. Um, and just, you kind of look, it just reminds you about some of the wonderful bits, but each part has got something that you pull out. And
See,
it's
I love
just a
that.
kind of,
I
yeah.
love that.
And
And
this
the
is a map.
interactivity. Yeah,
But
the
this is a map.
interact yeah,
Yeah,
love it.
it was interactive, but also it's that reminder that we read lots of different things and lots of different formats, and this one is just a map of Wonderland. And again, you could be just sharing this at the start of a session, and you could be like, which page? Where should we take something from?
Yes.
And then that will lead. You might have a lesson for each part of the book, but
Yeah.
actually, you're like, it's the map. Right. Or you have two different parts. Who would
Mhm.
like to think about? We've read some things about Alice in Wonderland. What would a map of Wonderland look like?
Yeah.
And suddenly I was off on a tangent. And we sometimes we get stale ourselves, and we
Mhm.
need to have that kind of little bit of an impetus to go, oh, mustn't forget about these things. So I liked that. And then I saw some lovely work recently, actually, in a school that I was in, where they were just doing stuff with menus, and they were highlighting like what the starters were, what the mains were, what they might like, menus from their local restaurant. So again, you've got a little Mad Hatter Tea Party invitation,
Ah,
and then the menu.
love it.
But simple, yet as I read each bit of that, I was like, I could actually then create a song about this menu. I could then, actually, we could design what the invitation might look
Yeah.
like. We could give everyone an invitation. We could do a Mad Hat Tea Party in our classroom, and
Yeah.
everyone gets an invitation, and that's what they get in the post. But it's that reminder of that books can be interactive and that they can be anything, but also they can be the jump off point to the next part of an adventure in our own minds
Yeah.
and an adventure of our own thinking. And I think that was for me. I loved it really. And I would absolutely recommend again, thinking about actually what we could do to have these kind of so many different things in. Again, sorry, this is a game board. So it's just
Yeah.
got the game board. So it's got a little game that's been designed, and it says you'll need a dice, a counter. These are the rules. Straight away again, you've got reasons to read and reasons to write.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And a
it's really,
purpose.
it's really interesting because a couple of times there you've said, this is just an invitation. This is just, they're not just anything. Can I just say, as a side, Sarah, the seagulls are really noisy today in the
Oh,
background.
isn't that funny? I can't hear
Your
them.
seagulls, I mean,
Yeah.
literally, it is like a school of I mean, you can't have a school of seagulls, but I can hear them so much. Your seagulls, and you're oblivious, aren't you? Oblivious to your
I
seagulls.
mean, the problem there is I do think it's something to do with my cat. So I won't say any
Oh,
more about my
okay,
cat, but my
no.
cat has been terrorizing some of the birds. But
Oh,
but yes, yeah. So again, yeah, it's not just, none of it's just,
no,
but it highlighted again for me the joys, and that was on World of Books, so it's secondhand, and it's the joys that a simple book can bring, and the book is, it's not the be all and end all, and we've talked a lot about that with the National Year of Reading, and they don't have to feast on the whole of that book,
no,
but they
no.
could snack on those little
Oh,
bits of it, and
yeah,
then they
you've
could
stolen
graze,
it. Yeah.
and they
Yes.
could graze on the invitations, and then that builds a whole thing. They could create. Well, what about actually? What about thinking about little voice note invitations? What's that going to
Yeah.
be like? So you're straight away again looking into all of those different ways that young people can be involved in all of this. And I
Yeah.
think that's key.
Sarah, you have
Sorry.
obviously speaking with you to you. I am taking on board all your language because I just wrote down snacking and grazing, and then you said them before I could say them. So obviously we are
Sorry.
Venn diagramming
Oh goodness,
very, very well. I am
that's a
going to
worry.
I'm going to sneak in a book
Yeah.
called The Big Umbrella, and it was one that I saw.
Ah,
Yeah, I saw it on LinkedIn, and I did just talk about umbrellas, actually. It's just a beautiful book by Amy June Bates, co-written with her daughter, Juniper Bates, and it says, "Here is an umbrella. It is big. It is friendly, but it is just one umbrella. Who will fit underneath?" And it just epitomizes everything that we talk about um having space for people to be their umbrella, and that we also need sometimes other people to be an umbrella for us. And I think sometimes, with regard to special needs and support that's given, we need to be ready when somebody says, "I've got an umbrella here for you.
Mm.
Would you like to join me under this umbrella?" It's about looking after one another. Um, it is just about looking after one another and accepting help, isn't it?
And you've made me think back to the inclusion bases actually then, because actually that whole thing around that being an umbrella is that you don't stay under it the whole time. You go under it when you need to, and you get that support from other people, and then you might go back in when it stops raining.
Mm. Mm.
I think we need to have a look at that book actually then and think about doing a whole bit of training around this, Ginny.
It is a beauty. It's
Yeah.
just a beautiful book. Few words,
Love it.
but actually there don't need to be many words. Lots of pictures. I mean that's
And
another
again,
book.
well, that's the whole thing, isn't it? Again, about it being that opportunity to kind of like give us that little bit of something, that spark. And I think when we both saw that, actually, in terms of when we saw that on LinkedIn, I think both of us, it made us go, oh.
Yeah.
And actually, it's that spark, isn't it? From interacting with other people and just getting that. I want to get the book now. That's it. That's now gone on my list, Ginny.
There you go. There you go. Sarah, thank you so much to consider and so much to reflect on, as always. So, as we always say, Sarah, always a pleasure.
Never a chore. Thanks, Ginny. See you next
All right,
time.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us this time on Catching Up with Sarah and Ginny.
Always a pleasure and never a chore.